Today is the day that your taxes are due for 2024, and it's possible that you are listening to this because you are absolutely freaking out. And if that is you, I got you. I understand. It can feel scary, but I'm here to give you some relief. And today's episode is about those last things you can do: filing a tax extension and paying your taxes. Welcome to the Sunlight Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, tax pro, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative or soul-centered entrepreneur or wellness practitioner who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, I am coming to you on tax day. Today is the day that your taxes are due for 2024, and it's possible that you are listening to this because you are absolutely freaking out. And if that is you, I got you. I understand. It can feel scary, but I'm here to give you some relief. And today's episode is about those last things you can do: filing a tax extension and paying your taxes. All right. So I'm going to give you the 411 today on filing a tax extension. And it's going to be a short and sweet episode. But just real quick, I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind a lot lately as the world feels weird and AI is starting to kind of crop up in our life and affect, young people's thoughts about what they're going to study in college and job and career. And so I just want to kind of give you my 2 cents on that. As somebody who is a dedicated lover of the humanities, and, I just wrote a book called Taxes for Humans. So I'm all about the human. And I think that art and design is all about being human. And so I actually have a lot of confidence that the arts and design will be okay. I think it's going to be okay. So I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts recently, the Scott Galloway podcast. He has a million different versions of it. But he was being asked what some good career advice for young people is. And he said something that really resonated with me. So I just wanted to talk about it for a minute. He said, work on your relationships. That's the most important life skill you can have. And I agree with him. And it's actually why I focus so much on the human side of what I do. I essentially built a business around being a human, right? So yeah, I agree. Build your relationships. That is a life skill that will help you when the world starts to turn to AI. A lot of technical careers are actually things that are very replaceable by AI, and yet relationships are not. They just are not. So it's really important, of course, that you have skills, including technical skills, and that you be excellent and you show up for your work and you do what you say you're going to do, right? You have to be a trustworthy person and you have to have skills that you bring to the table. That's the baseline, okay? But having fulfilled that baseline, the next most important thing is the people that you encounter and that they know your good work and they know your reliability and trustworthiness and they know your skills, right? That's the second part. So I want to tell you 2 quick stories about this and why it has been so powerful in my life. And this is pre-AI, and I'm just here to say I think this will get stronger and more intense as we move into a world more dominated by AI. One of these things is recommendations for other artists to the galleries that I work with and have worked with over my career, right? So there comes a time, most artists, when they're represented by a gallery, at some point, your gallerist is going to say, hey, can you recommend anybody? Like, I have an opening for a show. Do you know anybody good, right? So most gallerists are going to ask their artists if they have a trusting relationship. Ding, ding, ding. Again, relationship. They're going to ask, right? And so I always liked to have a couple of people kind of at the ready who I wanted to recommend to my gallerist. Now, I never, just FYI, and before you send me a single email, I never respond to pressure. If somebody tries to pressure me into recommending them to my gallerist, it's a clear, hard no. I wouldn't necessarily even say the no to that person, but I would never make a recommendation under duress. The reason why is that my recommendations, they reflect on me, right? So who I want to recommend is always going to be someone I really, really trust, right? I'm only going to recommend people in a professional setting who I know will deliver and who I know are going to be kind and pleasant to work with, right? And so this literally has come to bear fruit. There are a couple friends, maybe about 3 different friends who are all great artists. So again, the skills baseline of having excellent work is there. But what's funny is they're not even necessarily the very most talented artists that I know. I know so many artists, many of whom have probably potentially more impressive skills, right? But these people have great skills, make great work. But the key is that they're really reliable. They're incredibly, incredibly reliable. I know when one of these 3 people says, I will meet this deadline, they will meet that deadline. And I know that if they promise something, they're going to follow through. I know that they're not going to flake out and make me and my recommendation and my network look bad. I want my recommendations to carry a high value. And so I'm never going to recommend a person who has a really big ego and is going to potentially blow up a relationship. Why? Because the last thing on earth I want to do is take a relationship with my gallerist, which took me quite a bit of work to establish in the first place, and blow that up or threaten it in any way with somebody being, a jerk to them. So that's one story about relationships and how they're so powerful. I mean, just to give an example, there's a very good friend of mine who I have recommended to residencies, galleries that I've been in, multiple galleries that I've been in, and she's gotten maybe a bunch of solo shows and residencies. Not entirely because of me, of course, her own good work is a part of it, but a ton, right? I recommend her all the time. And part of the reason is that, one, I do love her work, but she's just a joy. She's a joy to be with. And you trust everything she's going to say. If she says she's going to deliver on this date, she will. I know that she will follow through. And so 100% of the time, I know that gallerist is going to turn around and look to me and be like, wow, she's awesome. Thanks for that. And ultimately, that's the psychology on my end of recommending someone. That's the only kind of response I'm looking for, right? Wow, Hannah's recommendation is amazing. That's what I want out of that. And I had a different friend who I recommended to my gallerist here in town, the Tracy Morgan Gallery. I recommended her for a group show. I actually curated a group show. So I curated her into this show that I put on in 2020 at my gallery. And when she was done with the show, one of the delightful things about her, of course, she makes beautiful work, is that she was so thankful, so filled with gratitude, both to me and to my gallerist. She treated my gallerist so well, right? She was really kind to her. She was really appreciative of all of the work that it took my gallerist to receive her work and ship it back and all this stuff. And she wrote, as soon as she got home to her state, because she does not live in the area, as soon as she got home to her state, she wrote a handwritten thank you note to my gallerist and baked her cookies and sent them in the mail. My gallerist actually told me about it because she was so delighted by this wonderful human. And so again, it is actually the baseline is that every artist I know has great work. I could recommend a lot of people based on work alone, but the real reason that I recommend people is because they're wonderful. They're wonderful humans to work with. They're people who are pleasant to be around, who deliver, who are not going to flake out, and who are appreciative of other people's work. The second story is about getting my book deal. So my book deal basically happened through relationships as well. And of course, hard work, again, was the baseline. There's a lot of people who can do the hard work of writing a book. But getting a book deal is more than that, because the person on the other end at the publishing house is looking for somebody who's then going to appear on podcasts and then, talk about the book on Good Morning America. And so you have to be a person who is capable of making those connections cultivating those relationships, reaching out. And it's not for cynical reasons. I mean, you generally want to work with people who are good to work with, right? Nobody wants to have an asshole. Nobody. And so it's like, I have found in my own career that just like being kind and ethical and delivering what I say I will and being good to my friends, like this has been a huge career boost for me. And getting to know the publishing industry. So to me, this was a brand new world that I knew really nothing about. I started thinking down this path because my agent wrote me a cold email and said, "Hey, I think you could write a great book," which is a bit of a Cinderella story, but it still required multiple years of work and research into the industry and cultivating relationships beyond my agent. But ultimately, it was my research about the publishing industry, putting in a tremendous amount of upfront work and effort into learning how the publishing industry works so I could understand where those relationships really like matter, and also what I needed to deliver, like what the expectations were on me so that I know I can promise to deliver them and fulfill those promises, right? I do think probably a lot of authors don't realize how big the job is outside the writing of the book. If you make it clear that you do know how big that job is and that you're willing to do that job, I think your chances are much better. And honestly, I attribute a lot of the fact that I got a really good book deal to making it clear in my book proposal and in my communications with my publisher, like, yeah, I know what this job is of promoting a book and I'm up for it. And that's a really key thing just in another part of the world that's really, can be difficult to navigate. So long story short, know your industry and be great at relationships. I think those are the keys. Be trustworthy, deliver what you say you will, be someone that people can count on. If you are those things and you bring great work, you're going to go far. I think that is what's going to get you through the world of AI. Now, I have a friend, speaking of relationships, my very good friend, Patty Johnson, who's an art world insider. She does this work, right? She has a program sort of where she helps people understand how the art industry works, how to cultivate relationships within it, and where those relationships matter, and how to communicate your message better, how to understand who your audience is. And your audience is not just the person buying your art. Your audience can be curators, it can be museum directors, it could be gallery directors. And it's actually important to know which you're speaking to at which time. So Patty has this amazing program called Network where she teaches these skills. And now more than ever is the time to cultivate it. I think a lot of artists are feeling really lost right now. Visibility feels hard. Social media is going haywire. All the algorithms are changing. We're clearly in an attention economy. And this is not always working out well for artists. So getting visibility is trickier now than it's been before. So I just wanted to bring all of this up to say that my friend Patty is hosting a free class a week from today called Make Art Anyway, your 2025 show strategy. So if you are an artist who listens to this podcast, I really recommend this class. It's free. She's going to teach you some strategies for visibility and getting shows in this weird environment that we're in right now. Patty does not sugarcoat anything. She is a true journalist. She tells it like it is. It's part of what I love about her. You always know where you stand. So I recommend this class. I really hope you will go to it. If you are an artist, especially a mid-career artist, kind of feeling stalled out, your work is great, but your career just feels like it's not advancing. You're working harder and seeing less. This class, Make Art Anyway, is going to be amazing. I really believe in Patty's work. She's the real deal. So if you want to sign up for that, you can go to makeartanyway.net. Sign up for the class. It's free and it's on April 22nd, and I hope to see you there. All right. So with all of that said, let's talk about tax extensions. A tax extension is the way to go if you've gotten all the way to tax day and you realize you're not going to get it done. Okay, so let me explain what a tax extension is and is not. A lot of people think mistakenly that when they file for an extension, that it gives them an extension to pay. and it does not. You need to be very crystal clear. Your payment is due April 15th every year, and there's no extensions for the payment. So no matter what, you're going to have to pay something if you owe it, okay? Now, it's okay that that's going to be an estimate. In fact, we know it will be an estimate because you don't know the exact number until you do your tax return, right? All tax paying before you file your tax return is an estimate of what you think you owe. This is true for estimated quarterly taxes. It's true for payroll withholding. And the reconciliation process, where you actually reconcile what you estimated versus what the actuals are, that is the tax return. So it's okay to pay an amount and be taking a bit of a stab in the dark. It's okay. You can just pay it, and if you overpay, you'll get the rest back as a refund as soon as you file your taxes, okay? So today's the date of that file for that extension request. What the extension request does do for you is it gives you an automatic 6-month extension for the paperwork. It means you have 6 more months that you can fill in your paperwork, submit your tax return. So October 15th becomes your new deadline, all right? You do have to make your tax payment today, even though it may be an estimate, and then file that paperwork. Now, the cool part about making a payment making a payment of what you think you owe is that it eliminates the paperwork. So you can fill out the paperwork for an extension. It's a form 4868. I think I got that number right. On the IRS website, you can print it out, fill it out, mail it in, postmark it today. That works fine. You can fill it out at IRS Free File for free on the IRS website. There are companies that will charge you money to do an extension, but you can do it for free, and it's so easy that it's worth just doing for free. But if you make a payment for your taxes for April 15th, and you go to the IRS website, in the drop-down menu, it's going to say extension request or payment for extension. Click that button, make your payment there, and it will automatically do the paperwork of filing for an extension request. So it will automatically extend your time to file the tax return as you make your payment. And it will give you a confirmation number. This is something you want to note for your records, but that confirmation number, that's your proof that you got an extension. Isn't that nice to know that you can skip a little bit of paperwork today? So go to the IRS, irs.gov, click that button that says make a payment. In the drop-down menu, pick the one that says extension, make a payment of whatever amount. You know, you might be wild ass guessing it. That's all right. Maybe it's $200, maybe it's $2,000, maybe it's $20,000. I don't know. It's going to depend on how many estimated quarterly taxes you paid last year. If you paid 0, you might owe a full year's amount of tax, and that's going to be a scary situation. P.S. That's what I make my whole program geared towards, is getting you out of that ugly situation. But that's another talk. All right. So if you don't pay your taxes on time, and on time is today, April 15th. If you don't pay your taxes by April 15th, you will accrue 0.5% interest per month up to 25% of your full outstanding taxes. So let's just put some numbers on that. If I owed $1,000, right, if that's what tax I actually owe, then I will be paying a penalty of $5 per month until I pay the full bill, right? And that could go on all the way 50 months from now up to $250, 1/4 of the $1,000 that I owe, right? So that's how the penalty works on your unpaid balance. So in other words, your estimated payment, your extension payment, should be as much as you think you owe. Try to hit the number that you actually owe. If you undershoot it a little, you'll owe a little bit of interest, but it'll be interest on a smaller number. And that's kind of the name of the game. All right. And also, on the other hand, if you expect a refund, probably you're not a Sunlight listener if you expect a refund, because most people who are self-employed, that's not their problem, right? I mean, I hope you do, and you may get a refund if you overpaid your estimated quarterly taxes or if your income went down. It is possible. If you are owed a refund, you don't have to make any payment with your extension request. You can just file an extension request through the IRS website and then just be done, and you get the 6 months for the paperwork. If you don't file the request for the extension, then your tax return is late starting tomorrow. So you actually do need to get the extension. It's not automatic if you don't file the paperwork. All right. Well, I hope that has helped you out. I hope I've given you a little bit of sunlight about just the idea of being a human and the value of being a human and having genuine, real, warm, loving relationships in this world, supporting each other's wonderful work and work that you genuinely believe in. And I have a little request from you today. If these are scary times. Income is really dramatically down for me and many of my clients, and it's scary out there, right? And we here, I'm still rebuilding from Hurricane Helene after my studio is destroyed. I'm about to have to actually face that now that tax season is winding down. My request to you is I put a lot of work into this podcast so that I can bring you this information for free. I really ask nothing of you at all, but if you would be so kind, if you have gotten any value out of this podcast throughout this tax season, if you would just take a moment to leave a review for this podcast, it means the world to me. It actually helps this podcast grow, and podcasts do not grow without it. So your review tells Apple or Spotify that this is a great podcast, and it helps them surface it to other people when they do a search for, taxes for freelancers. So your review helps this podcast find people who need it. And man, do I appreciate that. I am so grateful for it. It also helps me if anytime there's something in an episode that hits you or that you want to share with a friend, if you share with a friend, that is another way to really, really help me at a time when things are, I'm going to be honest with you, things are really hard. And I'm sure they're hard for you too, but this is something free that you can do for me while I'm doing something free for you. And I appreciate it. I'm so grateful that you are a listener of this podcast. I'm grateful for all of you who write me on Instagram with requests for topics, comments about the show. I love it so much. And I feel just so much gratitude to be able to serve amazing people, designers, small business owners like you. So thank you so much. I hope you're staying well today. Good luck filing that extension. You got this. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. It really helps, and share it with a friend. I'm so grateful. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.